Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We have some empty seats still here in the first few rows. If you don't have a chair yet, please feel free to come forward. We can get cozy. Also, if anyone needs any interpretation services, please feel free to see Yelka over here. She's happy to provide you with a device so that you can listen in Spanish. Thank you. Can everyone hear us okay? Can you hear me in the back? Raise a hand. Yes. Great. Okay. Are we ready to get started? Let's do it. Colleen.
Hey. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Colleen Clemenson. I'm SANDAG's Deputy CEO, and I'm very pleased to invite you all here this evening to a very important public workshop meeting on the LOSSAN corridor. And tonight we're really focused on tunneling and how a tunnel could work, what the different aspects are. And there's a lot of things that we've been hearing from you as we're engaging in this public process, and that was an interest in starting off first with just a presentation to kind of set the stage for everyone. And then we'll explain. We're going to have some opportunities for people to break out and go get specific questions answered. If you have comments that you need to make, we have an area where you can do that. We actually have a court reporter who's going to be jotting down all of those comments so that we make sure they're all part of the public record. But today is a really special day. This week is Clean Air Week. I don't know if all of you have seen that in the news. Today was Free Transit Day, and we literally had thousands of people taking public transit throughout the San Diego region. And this is so important for our region as we continue to grow and look for transportation options. I'm really, really proud of the SANDAG team that is here today and the team of consultants that we brought together. Our consultants that are working on the tunnel project are probably the best in the entire world, and so we're truly happy to have them here, and they want to hear all your tough questions. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to our Director of Public Affairs from SANDAG, Robin Wapner, to get us started.
All right, thank you, Colleen, and hi to everyone again. I see some more folks joining us again. We do have a few more seats right here in front if anyone would like to take a seat. We've got our outdoor seating available as well. So again, my name is Robin Wapner. I'm the Director of Public Affairs at SANDAG, and we are so glad to have you all here with us today. How many of you were here on August 30th for our first workshop? Oh, that's great. It's about half and half. So half of you, this is your first time joining us for the workshop. Our goal through all of these workshops are really to bring you along the process with the project team as we're working on this project. We've been talking about this project for a very long time, right? But there's some folks that this is the first time maybe they're getting engaged. And so I hope you see we're trying to provide a lot of different ways to share information, to collect feedback, and to really engage with you one-on-one, because we get it. This project is important to you. This is your community. You deserve to have a voice in what this project looks like, and that's why we're here today, to listen to you. On August 30th, we had more than 200 people join us here at the town hall to talk to us, to ask questions. It's been a while since you've seen us in the public. That's because we've been doing a lot of work. The project team here and outside have been doing a lot of analysis over the last few years to learn. We heard a lot of questions from the public. We're trying to find those answers, and we're still going through that process. So at the workshop on the 30th, we received more than 200 comments from all of you. One of the questions we got was, what are you doing with all of this? How do we know you're listening to us? We want you to know we are recording every single comment that you provide to us. The project team is reviewing all of those. In fact, tonight we have an official transcriber to collect all of the public comments that we're going to hear from you tonight. Sorry, just another plug. If you do want to provide formal public comments as part of tonight's workshop, please make sure you filled out a speaker slip in the back and you get that submitted before the end of the presentation so we can figure out how much time we have for all of our speakers. Okay, so on the 30th, we heard a lot. We heard frustrations, we heard concerns, we heard a lot of questions. That's what this time is for. We are right in between the planning and the environmental phases of this project, which means we have a lot of really good information. We've got the top experts on our project team to work on this project. But we also still have a lot of questions, and that can be frustrating. Some people feel like we're moving too slow on this project. Some people feel like we're moving too fast. What we want you to know is two things really in particular. One, no decisions have been made. We are here to listen, to learn, and figure out what should we be thinking about, what should we be considering as we move into the environmental phase. The second point we want to make sure you hear us tonight is we are here to listen to you. We want to hear what you have to say, and we want to hear your questions. It helps us, and it helps the project just become even better. Another one of the questions that we've heard, we talked about how's the feedback being used. We're recording all of it. In fact, we're organizing some of the most frequently asked questions to create a document that we'll keep live on our website so everyone can learn from each other. We're hearing a lot of sort of similar themes. I want to make sure that we're taking advantage of that and sharing as much information, being as transparent as possible throughout this whole process. Question we hear a lot, has a new route been decided? No. This is a big point of confusion, right? So I want to try to make this clear. Back in 2017, I'm going to probably get this wrong, Danny, so correct me. We had 5 lines on a map. Does anyone remember seeing those presentations, 5 lines on a map? Then around 2020, we were like, hey, we got 2 lines on a map. And so everyone thought we had decided on 2 lines. What those 2 lines actually meant is these are the 2 lines that we're going to do a little bit additional analysis on. Because when you look at those 2 lines, you learn things that you can apply to any lines. When I say lines, that means alignment. When I say alignment, that means where the rail corridor might go. So what we did over the last few years is did a little bit more analysis on those 2 lines, which led us to more questions about other lines. And so outside, you might see this board. We call it the spaghetti map. Got a bunch of purple lines on it. Those are all the different lines we've been looking at. And those aren't the end of the lines. We've been hearing from other folks about other alignments we should be thinking about. Tonight, we might hear another idea about other alignments we should be looking at. That spaghetti map is going to continue to grow. And these very smart people here are going to figure out what do we do with all of these lines and where should we end up when we go into the environmental process. So that's where we are now. We want to hear your ideas. We want to hear your feedback. We want to hear your questions so we can figure out where we go next. We've heard, what about a cost-benefit analysis? How do we know? Why are you spending all this money on this project? It's coming. We are going to complete a cost-benefit analysis next year. We don't have anything to hide. We want to share all of the numbers with everyone so that we can make this decision together. And then what's next? Like I said, we're getting ready to move into the environmental phase probably early next spring. And like I said, each of these workshops is meant to bring you along with the project development team as they work through this. So the team right now is really digging into tunnels, no pun intended. They're learning about tunnels. What does this mean? What are the impacts? What are the things we should be thinking about? So tonight's workshop really is about what is a tunnel? What might that look like for the city of Del Mar? So before we get into that though, I think it's really important that we all start from the same page. Why are we even talking about the LOSSAN corridor and moving the tracks off of the bluffs? So to help us with that, I'm going to introduce our Director of Engineering and Construction, Sharon Humphreys.
Thank you, Robin. My name is Sharon Humphreys, and I'm the Director of Engineering and Construction. I recently completed a little project called the Mid-Coast Project. I was a project director for that project. $2.2 billion project completed on time and on budget. And we have a pretty awesome project team and expertise working on large projects. And what's really important about the LOSSAN corridor is that it's the 2nd busiest rail corridor in the nation. And it carries nearly 8 million riders annually and transports over $1 billion in goods. And it reduces traffic. It's also used by the military, not just in Pendleton, but also from the military down at Naval Base down south. And it's the 2nd busiest corridor in the nation. So it's pretty important. Actually, we're not taking questions. We're just going to go through the presentation. It's the 2nd busiest passenger rail corridor in the nation. Okay, thank you. And we are seeing, I think everybody knows that there's 6 inches on average of annual bluff degradation. The tracks can't stay where they are. Mother Nature will win. We do need to relocate the tracks off the bluffs. So everybody's been watching the stabilization projects. You know, the first couple of projects were not that expensive. They were about $1 million in 2002. We spent $5 million in 2007. Phase 3 was $5 million. We did a $19 million project in 2020. And the next phase of the Mar Bluffs stabilization project will be $78 million. So it's getting more and more expensive, but what we're seeing is that it actually worked. There was an area there where the bluff sloughed off, and you could see the columns that we had constructed and the legging between the columns that protected the rail tracks. So it's working, but we've designed these columns for approximately a 20-year life, and so they're not going to last forever. You've seen a lot of different alternatives analysis. I think that Robin said already that we had looked at a lot of different alternatives. We're going to be doing a cost-benefit analysis when we have enough information to actually be able to tell what kind of travel time savings do we have. We don't know yet. We haven't selected an alignment. So that's what this is all about. We need to get your input so that we can come up with the best project for the community and the region. So this is our schedule for project delivery. We have been doing planning and public outreach, and many people know that we got $300 million from the state about a year ago. It took about 7 or 8 months for the state to release the funding to SANDAG, and then we procured the best and brightest in the world to work on this project. And we're going to be sharing those people with you tonight. The plan is to complete the environmental clearance by 2026, start construction in 2028, and then be open to public in 2035. So this evening is about getting smarter about tunnels. There's a lot of really brilliant people here, and Joe O'Carroll is one of those people. He is a tunnel expert with 40 years of experience. He's worked on tunnels all over the world, and he actually worked on the channel between England and France for about 5 years. So we really did bring the best and brightest to this community for you. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Joe O'Carroll to talk a little bit more about tunnels. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. And good evening. I'm pleased to be back here in Del Mar again with you. I see a lot of faces in the audience that I talked with the last time I was here, and you had a lot of great questions. And I'm going to, in a very brief presentation, I'm going to cover those under 4 discrete categories, and that's tunnel construction, tunnel ventilation, noise and vibration, and geotechnical considerations. So let's jump straight in. There are various methods of excavating tunnels. The choice is usually driven by the ground conditions, the ground type, it's the location, the size of the tunnel, and the cost. As Sharon mentioned, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis. Here in Del Mar, our primary concern will be the safety and the control of ground as it's being excavated so that it doesn't impact the community and we don't get any settlement at the surface. And this is best achieved using a tunnel boring machine. And I'm going to show you, talk just through briefly, a brief animation about how a tunnel boring machine works. So think of the tunnel boring machine as an underground factory, moving through the ground and building the tunnel as it goes. Each step in the process is designed to support the ground in front of, around, and behind the TBM, preventing settlement from occurring above it and migrating up to the surface. The ground passes through this rotating cutter head at the front of the machine into the chamber and then is extracted out through a screw conveyor. Those, you'll see there a second ago that we put additives into the front to condition the soil to keep a constant plug of ground in that screw conveyor, so it's controlled excavation at all times. The TBM is made up of two main components, the shield body at the front and the backup system that trails behind the shield. The shield is propelled forwards using a series of thrust ramps, and within that shield, the tunnel is built using precast concrete segments that are locked in place, bolted in place sequentially. This cycle is repeated ring after ring after ring, and when it works well, I believe in these ground conditions, we should be able to excavate this tunnel at about 300 feet a week. The final step in the build process is grouting the annulus that's left around the tunnel lining as it comes out of the back end of the shield. We like to think of this as leaving no gap left behind. When that's all grouted up solid, the tunnel itself is literally an integral part of the ground, and that will avoid any long-term or subsequent settlement after the tunnel is built. So now we know a little bit about how. Let's look at the depth of the tunnel. We're fortunate here that the natural topography from the south to the north results in a relatively deep tunnel for the majority of the length. And this, although it doesn't, at a scale of 1-to-1, horizontal to vertical, it doesn't appear to be deep. To put it into context of how deep the tunnel will be below Del Mar, I've used an image of the Statue of Liberty, just to give it some scale. Lady Liberty is about 300 feet high, and I think this just generally shows how deep we are under Del Mar for most of the tunnel length. When we were here last, you heard us talking about different variations of tunnel, a single bore and a twin bore, and we discussed those at the station, and they were shown on some of the boards. So just for the people that weren't here the last time, when we talk about a single bore, it's about putting two tracks, two tunnels in, two trains in one tunnel, and a twin bore is when we have two tunnels, smaller tunnels, but one track in each. What's important, and probably most important, is whether we use a single bore or a twin bore solution, which again will come out of the cost-benefit analysis, there will be no shafts necessary from the tunnel to the surface. I know that was a concern of many of the folks that were here the last time. When we talk about emergency egress from the tunnel during operations and for ventilation, all of that is dealt with at the portal ends to the south and the north. And we have some ventilation folks here with us tonight that'll be at the stations to answer any questions. So I also wanted to talk about the size of the tunnel. As you saw, if we go with a larger diameter single bore, this will be about the size of the tunnel. The reason for showing this, I think, is to show you that this in the left-hand side, this is a project that this consultant team together has been working on for a few years in Virginia. And although it's a road tunnel, this island was extended, and to the left of the road, you'll see this construction site starting at this particular time. And it's going to be boring a third tunnel to double the capacity of Hampton Roads. So it's, the concept is not too different to what we're seeing here. We're increasing the capacity as well as solving the problems on the bluff. We're increasing the capacity by double tracking as well. If we go with the twin bore, they're slightly smaller, 2 tunnels, and evacuation is from one tunnel to the other tunnel through short pedestrian type cross passages. But the point being is that here we're not pushing the envelope. This technology is state of the art, and it's really in the sweet spot of where TBM technology is today. So this is you saw in the video this precast segments being erected, and I just wanted to show you for that same tunnel we looked at, Hampton Roads, the precast segments here on the left-hand side at the precast yard, ready to be delivered to the site. If you see around the segments, there's that black line that goes around the edges. That's actually a rubber gasket. And the importance of that gasket is that when you bolt these segments together to build that ring that we just saw, it provides a watertight tunnel. And that's really important to know, because the tunnel will not lower the groundwater table or will not impact the lagoon as we're tunneling through it. On the right-hand side, you'll see that same tunnel, these segments all bolted in place, see nice and dry. I want to point out the yellow bagging is probably the key thing in this tunnel, and this is looking at the back of the backup system that we saw earlier. As I said, that's about 300 feet in length. It really is a fascinating underground factory, but that's providing ventilation to the front of the tunnel during construction. When we get into operations, the permanent ventilation is provided by fans, which, as I mentioned, are placed at the portals, and they're buried in a concrete structure underground. So that reduces noise, that reduces any visual impacts, and there are many actually other measures that we can use to reduce and lessen noise from the operation side, and that includes, in the lower picture, what you'll see is baffles. This picture was taken in Los Angeles on the regional connector. Danny made a visit there, and when the fans are turned on, when you're just standing on the other side of that baffle wall, you can virtually not hear anything. Isn't that right, Danny?
Correct. Yep.
Of course, during construction, we need to make sure that it's not just during operations, that we're not impacting the community through construction, noise, and vibration. We will be monitoring vibration and noise throughout the entire construction process. And as I mentioned, whilst we design these tunnels and build them to avoid any settlement, we don't leave it to chance. We do surveying at the surface on a daily basis to verify that everything is working the way it was designed, and that the ground is behaving exactly as we expected it to. In the permanent, there were some questions about the permanent operations noise and vibration. And we do tests to actually determine the vibration absorption of the ground in advance, so that our vibration experts, who will be at a table outside this evening, can actually calculate the level of vibration that emits it through the ground. Now, at more than 300 feet deep, it's just not a problem. I don't know how to say it any clearer than that. Vibration does not go through this ground. Towards the shallower ends of the tunnel at the north and south, that's where we start to look at the mitigations, if necessary. And then we test these mitigations prior to installing everything in the ground. Our goal is to make sure that whatever's mandated in the environmental impact statements, the environmental impact reports, we can meet and better those expectations. So where are we now? Well, we're in the phase of gathering data. The data, we do know a lot about the ground from past experience, people that have studied this regional geology, the work that was done on the I-5 recently. But we do need to do our first phase of geotechnical investigations just to basically verify that and fill in the gaps. What's also important is we don't need to have selected the alignment to do this first phase of investigation. It really is just to help us build up that geotechnical model that allows us to start progressing other considerations in the design and the construction. There will be further phases of investigation after alignment selection, but that will be at very specific locations, such as the portals, in order to verify more precisely the ground conditions for design of those structures. Danny, yep, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So I know that was a lot of information, like we said, which is why we have all of the stations set up outside, because I'm sure there's a ton of questions now, or you may just want to hear some more details. So this is a part in the workshop where we're going to provide both of those opportunities. If you all want to stay inside, provide some formal public comments, we're going to have the project team here to listen, our transcriber to record those comments as well. And then we're also going to have our project team members outside so that you can talk to them one-on-one if you prefer. So another reminder, if you haven't submitted your speaker slip yet, please do so now to Sheila in the back. Danny's just going to go over a quick overview of what we're going to have outside, and then we're going to move into the public comment portion of the workshop. We have 16 speakers right now. So final call, if you want to submit comments, please see Sheila. Danny's going to give us an overview of what you can expect outside.
All right, thanks, Robin and Joe. Very informative education on tunnels and how they're constructed. I just wanted to reiterate, if this point wasn't entirely clear, this map represents the project experience of tunnels from around the world that the people that are working on this project have what their experience has been. So it's clear that we have world-class expertise working on this project. We know what we're doing on this. We have outside, these are the stations, the 6 stations. I will be out there. We have all of these are the faces. There's a handout with some of the people. So if you have specific questions about tunnel construction, you can go and talk to Joe and have those questions answered. Talk about noise and vibration. There's public comment stations outside. Geotech, we have our experts there, as well as folks from our environmental process. So. And there's also a whole host of other people that are going to be floating around helping to answer questions too. So that's really, we have 2 options. So we have public comments here inside, and we have experts outside to have those conversations. And so I think I'll pass it back to Robin, and hope to see you all outside.
Good. Okay, we'll take a few minutes then to get ourselves organized inside, or if you'd like to head out to the workshop in the stations, please feel free to do so. We'll get started on the public comments, let's say 3 minutes. Okay, is that better? Can we hear now? All right, we have a little over 20 speakers, and we want to hear everyone. So we're going to give 2 minutes to each speaker. Like I said, I'm going to call names 3 at a time so you can line up, and we could keep it moving. I don't know if Bill is still in the room, but I want to apologize. I had our outreach slide up, and I neglected to mention all of the workshops that we have coming up. So we will pull that up again so you can get all of those dates. We have at least 3 more workshops coming up through the end of the year, but also we wanted to make sure everyone knows that we are partnering with the City of Del Mar to provide an informational storefront desk here at Town Hall. So we're going to start offering that service in November, once a week probably through the end of the year. And then as we get closer to the environmental phase, we'll up that to twice a week. And we'll also be offering like a virtual office hour. So you can either come in person, talk to one of us, or join us online and continue this conversation after tonight. I'm so sorry I didn't mention that earlier. Please make sure everyone knows about that. And we'll be pushing that information out as well, okay? So here at the Town Hall starting in November. All right, let's get started with public comments. So we have Russ B. Mary Alice, and Julie P. If y'all can come up, Russ, Mary Alice, and Julie. 2 minutes each, please.
Good evening. My name is Russ Brocious, and this question is directed at SANDAG. I think Councilman Dan Quirk has come up with a tremendous amount of very, very interesting information. And you have a cost-benefit analysis, but I wish you would do the cost-benefit analysis, do the cart before you do the horse. Let's go back to the beginning and see exactly what this is. I'm not sure what SANDAG is afraid of. Why don't they release the information to the public so that we can actually see the numbers and correlate the numbers? It makes no sense to do a $300 million study if we don't have the base information. So I would encourage everybody to go back, look at the information he's provided, and then answer those questions, the first questions of what is going on the bluff. I've been living on the bluff for 50 years. And so I'm very familiar with all these things. But then you get back to, and originally it was a safety issue. That's how we got into this. It was a safety issue. And there's other ways of addressing safety issues. One of the trains has got a little bell on it. Wonderful, it's not a problem. Put a bell on all the trains. You don't need to put it on the freight trains because nobody's down there when the freight trains are running. And you could run the trains a little slower. You know, if you take 10 miles off the speed between Coast Road and Torrey Pines, you're only increasing the time 2 minutes. Sometimes they go slower, sometimes they go fast. There's a lot of very simple, very inexpensive ways of increasing the safety on the bluff. And I disagree with the engineer who was here that I think your concrete pillars and your tiebacks and your beams in there are going to last a lot more than 20 years. And I would rather see us put more sand on the beaches to lower the erosion than to spend $4 billion on a tunnel.
Thank you, Russ.
So there's other things, there's other ways of skinning the cat. And this is not the way to skin the cat.
Thank you. Mary Alice.
Thank you.
Oh, no, why?
I don't know, it dropped out from where you were.
No, it's not mine.
Okay. Hi, my name is Mary Alice Lorio, and I apologize. I wasn't here at the beginning meeting, so some of the questions I have might have been addressed already. So I'm going to form them in to say if you'll think about these questions I have, and then maybe we can formulate some answers down the road. So one of them is, and they're not in any particular order either. So one of them is, I'd really like to know what the drainage systems, what the drainage is going to be coming out of the tunnel, how it's going to affect Penasquitos Lagoon. So that's one of them. When you remove the tracks from Penasquitos Lagoon, is SANDAG going to do any reclamation in there? And they just put 2 new bridges in that area. So I know it's 2035 when construction is going to happen. So that means, you know, it's 20 years down the road, these bridges have been in play. But nonetheless, that might be money that was wasted unnecessarily. And then what is going to happen to Old Sereno Valley Road, which is between Point Del Mar and Portofino, right next to the SANDAG field office there. You know, we'd like to be able to say that that would be a fix as well, because right now it's just an old road. It'd be really nice if they incorporated into like putting bike lanes in there or trails or whatever, you know, just have that as part of the project. It's considered to be part of the project. Is SANDAG aware, and I'm sure the city of Del Mar is aware, that Torrey Pines State Park has been looking for considerations for realigning the parking lot and also the entrance into the park. So it would be really a great thing if the 2 entities would work together to make sure that when, you know, that happens all at once, because it just doesn't make sense to, again, to tear up something that was brand new. So, and I guess lastly, I want to ask about, I worked on the train that went through UCSD, and we had to use which is fine, American-made products. So I want to be sure that if that's the case, that SANDAG also is held to that standard. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Mary Alice. We have Julie P. next, followed by Mike H., Brian K., Steve Q. So Julie is up next. Do we have Julie? I'm just going to spell the last name, Pinney.
I was number 5.
Number 3, lucky number 3, Julie.
I have a disclosure to make. In that case, I'm yelling at you. I am profoundly deaf. And I guess I don't even need to disclose it since you just watched my members of SANDAG, staff, and members of City Council that are here in the audience. My name is Julie Pinney, and I live at 727 Klamath Drive since 1978. It is the year of magical thinking. As it turns out, Councilwoman Terry Gasterland's paper, Napkin Scribbles, align very closely with a SANDAG alternative that has already been under study as possible route for the train tracks. This is called the MT-1 alternative, which aligns very closely with the I-5. It goes under and around the outer edge of the fairgrounds to I-5 and into Carmel Valley. I would like to rename it the Common Sense Alternative. It solves most of the residents' problems. This study is critical for some of the following reasons. Other routes could incur destruction of very high land values, disclosure issues, conflicts with title reports, which say we own the land under our homes that is limitless, lawsuits tying up progress for years, more sinkholes, slippage, noise, vibration, and on ad infinitum. Today, I'm sorry if I'm yelling, today we already have evidence of instability in our hillside landscape, along with San Clemente. We have homes on sandstone bluffs with caves underneath in the middle of our hill. Sinkholes on San Diego Drive. Don't mention a good earthquake. What if decades ago, Crest Canyon was one big sinkhole? Insurance companies are withdrawing many of their insured homeowners policies for fire risks.
Julie, you are at time. You are at time. If you wouldn't mind just wrapping up the comments, please, if you can hear me. We have to wrap up the comments, please.
Let me have a few more minutes, please.
We have to limit it to the 2 minutes.
Without insuring a home with a tunnel running underneath, what about getting financing to purchase a home near or above a tunnel or a portal? I won't ask the question, what about trying to sell a home? Okay, I can talk about personal experience in Portuguese Bend. I was a victim of a landslide. I lost my own home, no insurance. So historically, many great ideas were conceived on cocktail napkins. Thank you, SANDAG, for your consideration. I urge you to continue with your research with the reasoning that the MT-1 route can be adopted.
Thank you, Julie. Next up, we have Mike. Thank you. We have Mike, followed by Brian and Steve.
I'm actually speaking with a donation of time from my neighbor, Brian, so can I have 4 minutes?
So are you Mike?
I am Mike.
Okay, so Mike and Brian. Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
You got that, Sammy? Okay.
Thank you. And I have letters that I can submit for the court reporter or whatever you are later to make it a little bit easier for you. So, you're welcome. I'm here to represent two different boards that I'm a part of, the Torrey Pines Community Planning Board and the Los Penasquitos Lagoon Foundation. Both of these entities have submitted letters to you guys, and some of you may have seen them already, but we just wanted to make sure that they're reflected, or at least some parts of them were reflected in the public record. So from the Torrey Pines Community Planning Board, on July 28th, we had submitted a letter that said in part, placement of the southern tunnel portal as far south as possible is important to minimize environmental degradation and community disturbances, both during construction and operation. Specifically, a portal location just south of the City of San Diego Pump Station 65 would result in fewer adverse impacts to residential neighborhoods and to the Torrey Pines State Reserve viewshed. Locating the portal at the nexus of a sewage pump station and I-5, an area that is already environmentally compromised, offers numerous advantages over the other options. As it is already subject to significant noise pollution and transportation exhaust, the location's environmental profile would not be significantly altered by the addition of a tunnel portal and associated ventilation systems. The location is adjacent to the existing rail line and offers a previously excavated bluff face for portal entry. There are no residences in the area, and the relatively few commercial operations could be accommodated. Accordingly, community acceptance of the option would be significantly higher, and environmental objections to the option would be significantly lower than those of the other options, which will likely avoid the lawsuits and other potential construction delays that would inevitably occur with the other options. In addition to the potential to begin construction earlier, a portal in this location should allow for an accelerated construction schedule. Rather than working around the need to keep traffic flowing on Carmel Valley Road and neighborhood noise mitigation requirements, which could limit work hours, this location is easily serviced by Old Sereno Valley Road, would have no neighbors to placate, and provides easy access for construction equipment. There is even an existing large and unused Caltrans staging area off Sereno Valley Road a few blocks away from the site. That's from the Torrey Pines Community Planning Board. From the Los Penasquitos Lagoon Foundation, we are supporters of SANDAG's efforts to remove the rail line from Del Mar's sensitive coastal bluffs and look forward to the return of these neighboring bluffs to their natural habitat. We are aware that various locations are under consideration for a tunnel to replace these tracks. We strongly recommend that the south portal entrance for any such tunnel be located as far south as possible. We encourage you to carefully consider the proposal made in the Torrey Pines Community Planning Group's letter to you, dated July 28, 2023. The suggested portal placement in the vicinity of City of San Diego Pump Station 65 would remove the historic mistake of railroad tracks dividing the sensitive Los Penasquitos Lagoon in two. The current location of the tracks would never be considered in a de novo application. Construction of this tunnel is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for SANDAG to bring 21st century environmental stewardship to the Los Penasquitos Lagoon. The current location of the rail line is an artifact of history. The rail realignment project is the perfect opportunity to remedy this century-old error and, by restoring the historic tidal flow to the lagoon, reverse the environmental damage wrought by its absence. Restoration of tidal flow through the removal of the tracks and berms would greatly improve the lagoon's hydrology, supporting long-standing efforts by the City of San Diego, California State Parks, and the Foundation to restore the lagoon's historical salt marsh. Restoring the salt marsh improves sustainability and overall health of the lagoon. It is beneficial for water flow, vector management, and flood attenuation in surrounding areas. The lagoon's value as a critical wildlife corridor would be significantly enhanced. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next up, we have Steve Q, followed by Dave C, and Michael C. Steve, Dave, Michael.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Steve Quirk, and I'm a long-term resident of Del Mar. This tunnel is the largest and most expensive project in San Diego County history, and there's not been a transparent and accurate portrayal by SANDAG of this project. A large reason for this is the all-important cost-benefit analysis has intentionally been delayed or not publicized. This analysis will almost certainly demonstrate extremely high cost with comparatively little benefit. Anyone who looks at these trains can see that they are mostly empty most of the time. An analysis of the roughly 100 passenger trains in the country shows that these tracks rank among the very worst. A forecasted increase in ridership has also never occurred. In fact, ridership has declined over the past 20 years, despite a large increase in jobs and population and hundreds of millions spent on upgrading the rail corridor. By contrast, the I-5 highway carries 250 times more passengers than the coastal train and has a demonstrated and proven ability to expand needed capacity. With regard to freight, SANDAG has also dramatically overstated the importance. Rail volume is well below 1% of total freight for all of San Diego County. Trucking accounts for over 90% of freight. But SANDAG intentionally tries to overstate the importance by quoting values with absolutely no context, i.e. 1 billion in California when there is 2.3 trillion in freight in California annually. This classic misdirection and misinformation must stop. SANDAG has a long history of controversy and scandal that has severely eroded the public's trust in the organization. The recently announced and abrupt departure of both the executive directors of SANDAG and NCTD is a clear sign that a new direction is needed. We can start with this Del Mar tunnel. There is a lot of misinformation regarding the rail corridor, and much of this could easily be clarified with the delayed and missing cost-benefit analysis. You say next year, I'll wait to see it. This is unacceptable when the stakes are so big. We are talking about a project that will tear our town apart for a decade, destroy homes in the process, and be a major financial drain for the entire county. We need the cost-benefit analysis now, along with a transparent and honest approach to this project.
Thank you, Steve. Hi, Dave.
Yep.
Dave. Okay, and following Dave, we have Michael C.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Dave Carey, and my wife and I enjoy our home in Del Mar on Zuni Drive, just behind the plaza. Most of us agree that the train must be moved off the bluff. Our debate is trying to find the best location. In a joint effort between the communities involved in SANDAG, we need to consider the potential routes and any necessary portal for such a route. SANDAG states in their 2022 annual report, at SANDAG, we hold ourselves accountable to the communities we serve and are committed to creating a San Diego where every person who visits, works, and thrives there lives there can thrive. That's great news. The residents of Del Mar and San Diego that are affected by rerouting the trains are asking SANDAG to be accountable to our community and allow us to thrive as stated in their own mission. I have read the 148-page analysis report and most of the appendices, and I encourage everyone else to do the same. It's a well-written and well-organized report. I can't speak for everyone, however, I believe the overwhelming majority of our community would like SANDAG to move the tracks to the I-5 route with the south porter as outlined by Mike a moment ago in option 3 of the latest plan. For the northern connection point, we believe it would be less disruptive to every person who visits, works, and lives in the area if the bored tunnel section would begin immediately south of the river before crossing Jimmy Durante Boulevard. The technical report just released by SANDAG states that this route and the connection ports I have discussed are technically feasible. The report goes on to say the intent of considering the north portal within the Del Mar Fairgrounds is to minimize potential impacts on residential properties. The report continues to say entering below grade within the fairgrounds would move the portal north San Dieguito River and minimize temporary and permanent impacts to private residences and surrounding roadways. So great, we have a technical feasible plan that SANDAG has studied and some level of progress. What is the reason that we continue down this path? There's a standard practice and very useful tool, which is this evaluation criteria. Safety improvement was the most heavily weighted at 15%. That makes sense. However, the example of safety given in the report was removing the car and pedestrian train crossing on Camino Del Mar. Wouldn't it make more sense to use this opportunity to move freight trains carrying hazardous materials away from residential properties and schools? If you use that criteria, the I-5 route would rank significantly higher.
Dave,
Travel time.
Sorry, if I can just ask you to make your final comments, please.
Yep.
Thanks.
Travel time ranked second highest. The stated reason for such a high rating was that if passenger trains are faster and more frequent, ridership will improve. I don't believe that's the case, and I'm not sure there's any evidence to provide that. So let me point out the final two things that are glaring issues with the weighting matrix. Why is right-of-way and community impact the lowest in the level of all weighting? I thought the mission of SANDAG was to be accountable to the communities they serve.
Michael, and then following Michael, we will have Dee, Dean, and Monica. Dee, Dean, Monica. And Michael.
Hi, my name is Michael Chiappetta. I've been a 24-year resident of the city of Del Mar. My major points here are threefold, and they all go to the core issue of credibility, and some of the previous speakers have touched on it. I think SANDAG, and this group in particular, has lost credibility with the community. First of all, for constantly claiming that this is such an important rail corridor in the US with 8 million passengers a year. A quick search online will show you New York City on a given work day has 4 million. That's 4 million in a day. We have 8 million a year. Chicago's around 2 million a day. I don't know what Boston is, but you can see we're not even a drop in the bucket as far as ridership goes in the US. And spending $4 billion of the country's money, our citizens' money on a project like this seems incredibly wasteful without completing the cost-benefit analysis that previous speakers have asked for. So that's the first point on credibility. Secondly, I got a new surprise today, which also goes to credibility. The engineer who spoke earlier today said, oh, now we don't need ventilation shafts. So I've been following this project for 3 years. You have the best and brightest on this project the whole time, and now it's news that we don't need ventilation shafts? What facts have changed that have made it no longer a requirement to have ventilation shafts, and what facts might change back that require us to put them back into the plan? Can you see why the residents of Del Mar you've lost your credibility with them? Changing design of the tunnel, changing the locations, changing the justifications, doesn't make sense. Any possible plan that could possibly be justified should be at least looked at in the context of the impact on the community. The so-called common sense routing is the only reasonable plan that minimizes impacts to the community for its safety, impact on housing, and disruption to our overall lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Next up, we have Dee, followed by Dean.
My name is Dee Rich, and I live in a 92014 address, but in the city of San Diego, and I'm part of the Torrey Pines Planning Group. I want to add on to what Mike H. said, which is we are looking as a community at the alternative that ends up in a portal near either the knoll or further south in the lagoon. We feel it is the least destructive, the least potential noise and vibration, and overall construction impacts. Based on the original analysis, and I've been reading from your own SANDAG report, the portal might not require acquisition of residential properties. There would be no bridges in the saltwater lagoon, and minimizes impact on the lagoon due to shorter length of alignment with the lagoon. This underground route coming out near the sewer plant would be a successful for the environment, not destroy our 26-acre wildlife corridor, not destroy residences, would work with several of the other plans where it meets up, and we could be very supportive of it. We know that Fish and Wildlife is supportive of it. The Coastal Commission is supportive of keeping our wildlife corridor without a bridge going over. And this would not have a bridge. It would go underneath, moves the southern part of the alignment out of the middle of the lagoon and adjacent to I-5. It results in the lowest impacts on coastal wetlands and waters of the U.S. wetlands and associated species. Substantially avoids any conflicts with the implementation of the lagoon restoration plan. This would be a win for people and a win for transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Next up, we have Dean M, followed by Monica, followed by Henrik.
Good evening. My name is Dean Meredith. Much of what I'll say tonight I actually pulled out of SANDAG's 140 some sheets of facts. And some of it will contradict Joe, your expert on tunnels. So we talked about credibility. I think Joe talking tonight. And then if you look at your report, they're not saying the same thing. What will happen to our village? The facts in your report are 8 to 10 plus years of construction, if all goes well. 10 acres of a staging area at the north entry to Del Mar. In the staging area, thousands of heavy trucks moving countless tons of rock, soil, concrete for 8 to 10 years. This will compromise our north entry and will have a huge negative effect on our shops, businesses, restaurants, hotels, and tourism. Del Mar will suffer for 8 to 10 years or more. What will happen to and this is SANDAG's numbers again, what will happen to 2,724 residences above the tunnel? Quote from your report, homes could experience severe vibration and noise. Joe sat there tonight and said, it's not going to happen. Why does your report say it does? And as far as I could see on the report, the vibration and noise was based on a train. Was it a passenger train? Or maybe they didn't disclose it would be worse with a freight train. Again, freight trains below our village with carrying military explosives. Again, in your report, there could be soil collapses and sinkholes. Joe said this wasn't going to happen. Your report says it does. Thousands of homes could be damaged, cracked and damaged foundations. We cannot find anywhere where a freight train has been routed below residential property in the United States. These are the facts SANDAG report has stated. I'm wondering what facts, SANDAG is not telling us about. In conclusion, history has proven that these type of projects come with big risks. Time delays, 8 to 10 years, you're telling us, probably more. Cost overrun millions of dollars over budget. As most of you know, the Big Dig, for example, a complete, it wasn't on purpose. A big mess. It's called Big Dig, okay? Complete disaster, time and money. It seems in talking, I've been in Del Mar for 35, 40 years. To many people I've talked to, they think this isn't gonna happen, or at least in their lifetime. I'd like to state the threat is real. Construction is to start in 2028, per your report. We cannot let this destroy our village. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Next up is Monica. Next up we have Monica, followed by Henrik, followed by Troy.
I'm Monica Meredith. I want to thank SANDAG for being here and listening. I hope you will take our comments here into serious consideration and look at the pros and cons of these current routes. There are lots of cons. The destruction of homes and property, the risk of geotechnical issues, the air and noise pollution, the traffic, the fiscal impact on the small village of Del Mar, the loss of property values are all major issues that SANDAG should be considering. While a Del Mar tunnel may have seemed a good idea at one point, I believe after reading your reports that it is imperative for SANDAG to rethink this choice and seriously consider sending the trains to an I-5 route, which we know is feasible. And we also know, even though it was brought up tonight that you didn't know what the time savings were, in your own report you have a lot of tables where you specify exactly what time savings are. From 1.8 seconds to minutes to 2.2 minutes is very specific. The time savings are extremely minimal for the different routes. We're talking 1 to 2 minutes usually. We understand that you are tasked with moving the train. SANDAG chose 2 routes and was granted $300 million to do further studies. What's shocking is that the studies you've already done are very detrimental to those stakeholders in Del Mar and San Diego who will find a freight train running under their home 11 times a day. The fact that almost 2,800 homes would be subject to severe vibration impacts 11 times a day from freight trains and 90 times a day from passenger trains, as reported in your own recent analysis document, should be enough to reroute the train onto a safer, more acceptable route. Please understand that the majority, if not all of the people here in this community would like to see SANDAG do the right thing and find a well-suited location for freight trains now that they are being moved off the tracks. There are options and they've been understood to be feasible. Perhaps the train goes under, on, or over the fairgrounds. This is state-owned land where no one lives there. Aerial tracks are inexpensive compared to digging a massive tunnel. They are forms which attach to each other in construction and don't require the kind of invasive and unknown complications that a tunnel through Del Mar does. I'd like to ask SANDAG to take this issue seriously tonight. The people here want a solution that is not invasive to the city of Del Mar. We've heard no decisions have been made, and yet this entire presentation tonight seems otherwise. Please spend your time, efforts, and money researching a route that will ultimately be for the betterment of everyone involved. This entire process will go much more smoothly if there aren't class action lawsuits that slow down and ultimately stop this planned tunnel. And I'd just like to say that I'm part of the group that has this handout here tonight, and I would love it if all of you would take one. I will have them, and Betsy right over here in the plaid shirt has them.
Thanks, Monica.
And it's got some important information for you. Thank you.
Next up, we have Henrik. Yeah, Henrik, followed by Troy, followed by David P.
Well, thanks for listening. I was standing in the back, so I may repeat some of the previous comments, but I'll say what I heard. I strongly support the previous comments in the room. Firstly, I have 4 points I wanted to make. First, I think the cost-benefit analysis, which is very important, should be done by an independent entity, not by SANDAG, so we can have some trust in it. Secondly, I would like that cost-benefit analysis to include 2 alternatives. One alternative that I promote is the EV option. You talk about all that, you're transporting a lot of people, a lot of goods, moving that on the 5 on electric vehicles. I asked one of your engineers, he said the train is not even going to be electric, it's going to be a polluting diesel train. You're looking at hydrogen, but electric vehicles, they don't pollute, even better for the environment and probably more cost effective. I realize that may not be practical, but a more practical option, now that your director of engineering said bluff stabilization actually works, and you're spending $5 million, it works, and now you're going to spend $78 million, and it also works, it seems much more cost effective. So I'd like that you explore those 2 options. So doing nothing, basically keep the train where it is, or moving to an EV option. Lastly, if you insist on a tunnel and you have your in-rear educated tunnel engineer who seems like a smart guy, then I would propose, like has been said, to go under the 5. In your report, you write that the turn is going to be too sharp, so you're going to lose some time. You have to slow the speed. How about going down underground in Solana Beach, north of Via de la Valle, and go all the way under and out to the 5? Then you can have a slower turn, you can keep your speed, and you'll probably only lose 15 seconds compared to your other tunnel alternative. Thank you.
Troy, followed by Jennifer. David, Troy, Jennifer A.
Oh, David?
I'm sorry, Troy, David, Jennifer A.
Okay, I'm Troy. So I appreciate the opportunity to make a couple comments, and I agree with a lot of the other comments that have been made. I particularly agree with Dean in terms of outlining all of the complexities of a project like this, the risks to the community, the risks to small business to have construction last 8, 10 or more years, the costs, $300 million just to study it. $3 billion, $4 billion, $7 billion to do it. We don't really know what the ultimate cost is going to be. And I'd like to see an option added back to the cost benefit of leaving the train where it is and reinforcing the bluff. It seems like that's the lowest cost option. for a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the risk of disrupting the community, I have to believe that the bluff can be reinforced. And it seems like that option was just easily dismissed as Mother Nature will gradually win. But if we're spending $5 billion or $7 billion on a tunnel and all of the risks, I have to believe that for a fraction of that, we could reinforce the bluff for at least another 100 years. And then my final question is, in projects like this, errors happen, mistakes happen, things that are unforeseen happen. And when a house gets destroyed or a house gets damaged, I've never heard what the repercussions are going to be. Will people be reimbursed at fair market value? That needs to be in the report so that we understand what we're really undertaking here as a community. Thanks.
Next up, we have David. David, followed by Jennifer, followed by Jonathan.
Hello, my name is David Pierce. I'm from Carlsbad. Everyone here has probably been to a restaurant or had food delivered to their home with Uber Eats or services like that. They've had kids who've attended schools. We expect fires to be put out by firefighters. Today, the median cost of a house in the County of San Diego is $1 million. One thing that adds to the cost of housing, especially multifamily housing, is parking spaces. According to an article on, according to an article at the Brookings Institution, parking requirements and foundations are driving up the cost of multifamily housing. In 2020, one parking space adds $50,000 to the cost of a home. Now, if you're a waiter or a dishwasher, a teacher, a grocer. I worked at Target for 7 years. Someone who works at Target, stocks the shelves so your grandkids have birthday presents, Christmas presents. $50,000 is a breaking point for the cost of a house. So by removing, if houses did not need to have parking spaces, people who serve your community would be able to continue to live in the County of San Diego because of the decreased cost. At that point, they would need other means to get around the county without a car. The coaster would be essential. So I support the tunnel for the coaster because otherwise people who serve your community might not be able to afford to live here in the next couple decades.
Thank you, David. Next up, Jennifer A, followed by Jonathan S, followed by Mike.
Hi, I'd like to go on record of asking you to further look into the I-5 corridor and that a third-party company look into the benefits of it. Second, I'm a business owner in California, but not only Southern California, so I'm constantly looking at lawsuits and not getting sued, and I think you guys would be absolutely bogged down with lawsuits if you barrel through Del Mar. Third, I think you guys thought that maybe Del Mar was a sleepy, quiet town, but you've got lawyers and many people that will probably bog you down with it. So I think you're trying to just crush through here, and I think you will definitely find some pushback with it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jonathan S, followed by Mike, followed by David Y.
Hi, I'm Jonathan. I've owned a home in Old Del Mar since 2005, raised my family there, and I normally do not come to meetings like this. I loved learning about the engineering of the tunnels from Joel Carroll, PE. When I saw the scale drawing of the Statue of Liberty, respectfully, I felt like Charlton Heston at the end of Planet of the Apes. I wanted to drop to my knees. It seems like a dream. I was going to make an analogy about the Channel Tunnel and what we're attempting to do here in Del Mar, and I don't need to bring that up because we have an expert who actually worked on that tunnel. The fact that a bored tunnel is being actively considered in our region of San Diego County just seems shocking given my perception of the absolute ridership and relative economic importance of this section of rail compared with all the other strategic and fiscal priorities facing our region. And I'm curious as to why so much investment is necessary in rerouting it at all versus considering decommissioning the stretch altogether. There's a common precedent for moving passengers between sections of rail that are problematic or decommissioned, which is a bus bridge. That has not been mentioned. I wonder if I'm the only one thinking about that. The cost of a bus bridge between the mileposts in question would seem to be a rounding error relative to the costs being contemplated for these very expensive alternatives. And if the priority is truly being driven by freight or military and not passenger utility, let's have a transparent dialogue about that rather than presupposing the contemplated rail section needs to exist. What cost would cause rethinking of the project? Who's to say what the final number will be relative to the estimates in Appendix G of the alternatives analysis? Look at our state budget and the other line items compared to this project and the benefit it would provide relative to those other priorities. It feels like buying a jet when you can walk to the grocery store. While I understand the appeal of modern infrastructure, are there more community-friendly, cost-effective alternatives being examined? And having reviewed the website and the recap of the August 30th meeting and the tenor of the public comments tonight, I would hope that there is a serious summary of the meetings going forward, inclusive of this one. What I read on the website, if I read the right section, was a couple of sentences saying many members of the community attended the event, provided public comments, and engaged in important dialogue about the future of the LOSSAN rail line. Basically, a good time was had by all.
Jonathan,
this is something that doesn't seem serious, and I appreciate your time, consideration, and service. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just doing a time check. It is 7:23. We have 9 more speakers to go. First up is Mike, no last name, followed by David Y, followed by Barry R. Please go ahead.
Good evening. As we sit and stand here tonight, we're less than 10 miles away from the I-5 52 interchange, which is roughly the known north end of the Rose Canyon Fault. I know that there's been extensive studies done along that line with regards to the existing railways that are there. How is it that those studies there are not being looked at here, considering the damage that could be done to people's homes from an earthquake from that fault less than 10 miles away by you guys putting a hole underneath the city? You guys throw around billions and billions of our dollars, billions. They're talking 4 billion, whatever for this. It seems like it's a blank check. It keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Our country is broke. We're sending $113 billion to the Ukraine. We need a sewage treatment plant down here in South Bay that'll cost $1 billion. So with both of these projects put together, that's 117 sewage treatment plants that could go down into the South Bay. It is absolutely amazing. You guys throw away, or you guys, and you guys throw around billions of our tax dollars, absolutely amazing amounts, staggering amounts of money. And there's like, the spigot's broke. It's broke. You guys have kept cranking on that thing for as long as you possibly can. So you guys are trying to appropriate this money for this project. Have we appropriated the money that's going to take care of the settlement that we're going to have to pay Nathan Fletcher?
Very good. Next up, we have David Y, followed by Barry R, and Stephen R. David?
Thank you. My name is Dave Yanovitz. My wife and I live in the Del Mar Terrace area, long-term residents there. I won't waste my time here speaking of the same thing most people have talked about. I agree with just about everything that's been said. What I would like to do is talk about the presentation that was made about the how to build a tunnel. I thought it was a little inappropriate. We're at the 10,000-foot level. We're looking at this project now. That's more at the 100-foot level of the details. And I've never heard anyone, when it comes to these meetings, talk about how do you build a tunnel? You know, so I think it was just too detailed for where we're at right now. And I would hope that in the future we'd have more appropriate agendas. One question I had after listening to the professional engineer is, in this cost-benefit analysis, isn't the cost driver here the length of the tunnel? And I would suggest to you that maybe the I-5 corridor is the least length of the tunnel. If you measure it in what it costs per mile, per foot, or whatever units you want to use, you know, versus building much of it above ground as you can, I think the I-5 corridor might come out a little farther ahead in your cost-benefit analysis, and probably a lot farther ahead. Another point I'd like to bring up very quickly, I've never heard anybody talk about, is I remember when One Paseo area was being talked about in the City Council of San Diego, and they talked about the residents moving in there and all the businesses and what the congestion was going to go on 5 because of that. And there was a lot of talk about some kind of rail system going through there to help alleviate that congestion on 5. I've spoken to some SANDAG people at these meetings previously, and not even being considered. And I think that should be part of your cost-benefit analysis to help the congestion on 5, and see what can be done, maybe with use of the fairgrounds, maybe with use of other things, so that people in that area could use the rail for their travel downtown or wherever it has to go. The coaster was going to run through there. They can get on and off the coaster there. But I haven't heard SANDAG even mention that kind of thing. So
Thank you, David.
I don't see any consideration there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Barry R., followed by Stephen R. and Ken B. Barry? Final call for Bear. You're Jerry, right? Yes, okay, Barry. Nope, moving on to Stephen R., followed by Ken B. and David H. Stephen?
Hi, Stephen Reich from Stratford Park Circle. I would hope that in future communications, there are a couple of issues that are addressed that perhaps have been addressed a little bit before. But one, I know there's going to be multiple cubic miles of debris that are taken from the tunnel. Where will it go? How will it get there? And what will happen to the roads where these heavy trucks will travel and tear them up? Another is, in terms of the cost benefit, houses that have to be demolished, how will they be incorporated into the cost analysis? For example, is it assessed value or actual market value? And then finally, who owns the land underneath their houses? And if, as said before, it is belongs to the private holder of the land, then I do expect that there will be a lot of lawsuits that will impede the tunneling under the Del Mar city. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Next up is Ken B., followed by David H. and Laura D. Ken Barrett? Anyone see Ken? Moving on to David H. David A. Oh, you're ready. We're just going in order of how they were handed to me, so it's not in necessarily numerical order right now. I'm calling 3 at a time. No David H. We'll move on to Laura D.
Hi, Laura DeMarco. I know this is part of the public record for the EIR, so these are the kind of questions I have, specifically about sound and micro pressure waves. As the train speeds, because you really want to accelerate the train through the tunnel, I would really encourage you to look at the large single diameter one, because it's kind of like a rifle. If you have a smaller tunnel and a train's rushing through it, those micro pressure waves make a larger sound when they go in and they go out. So could you please do a study on that based on the size and the boring? The other thing is will the train, because, according to your study, you will be able to accelerate be over 100 miles an hour. When would that happen? Would that happen through the beach colony and over the lagoon on that bridge? And how would you mitigate the increased sound, especially for the freight trains and the vibration? So those are some of the questions I have. And so I really would like a sound study and the micro pressure waves that really create the high noise that everyone's worried about. Thanks a lot. Oh, last thing. A fellow from Solana Beach is here, and he said when you guys put the big dig to lower their tracks, you got a lot of beach sand. I would assume that we have some beach sand that you'll be excavating, and I hope you put it on our beaches. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, our final two speakers for tonight, we have Stuart C., followed by Jerry R. Stuart C.? Yes, sir?
I put in a card, I gave it to you.
Would you like to come up and speak?
And I don't have to give my name. I said, you don't have my card.
Oh, David H.
No, I actually spelled out my last name.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Please go ahead.
Oh, that's very kind of you, just H. Okay, my name is David Halpern. I was very impressed with the agenda tonight by starting off with about 23 minutes on a tutorial of how to build a tunnel. That meant that, to me, that meant that SANDAG had already made a decision that tunnel is number one rather than some alternate way, which would be maybe the I-5. So I want to just suggest that SANDAG and their engineers think of the precautionary principle. The tunnel that was shown in a sketch, like sloped down and then sloped up. Under global warming, we're getting a huge number of El Niños. We have one coming up this year. We've had a big one in 82, 83 that the local residents remember because it flooded most everywhere. And then we had another one in 97, 98, and 2015 and 2016. It doesn't mean that every El Nino is going to give us torrential rainfalls, but many will. And if you have a tunnel with the sloping down, you're going to have a lot of water at one end. That's the unintended consequence. Your engineers are great, but they're not thinking that way. Under the precautionary principle, I'm sure you're going to worry about earthquakes. I'm asking you to really take into consideration the idea of global warming. I know not everybody believes in it, but many of us do. And that means torrential rainfalls, not just, which means they're going to flood the tunnel, maybe once every decade. New York City subways are getting flooded more often now, and every other major city, even London. When it comes out, or wherever it goes, there's going to be, that lagoon is going to be flooded much more often because of the high rains up in the hills that'll then the river outflow. A tunnel, if your desire is to have a tunnel, why not put it under I-5? It's level, it won't collect water in one area, it'll spread out, and it'll be much easier to maintain for maintenance. On the other hand, you can just put it on top of I-5 or next to I-5. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, David. Just going to call Stuart one more time. Was Stuart here? Stuart Collinson. Okay, Jerry, you're up. Yeah.
Okay. I understand we're going to have a railway system, just like we have a freeway system. I'm not a historian, but the freeway system started in the 50s because of Eisenhower, and it was for national defense. course, it's expanded to something else. So there's no doubt we're going to have a railroad system here, if nothing else for national defense. But I moved to Del Mar 27 years ago, and I asked about, how is it so amazing? And they said, well, let me tell you a little bit about the history. First thing they told me is, you see Camino Del Mar? That was going to be I-5. And the citizens of Del Mar got together, and we just worked really hard, and it was moved. Well, this is our turn to work hard. Then you look at the plaza, which is a jewel. But the plaza has a beautiful patio that serves all of San Diego. The reason it's so beautiful is because instead of the original plan, which was going to have stores along the ocean side, as in addition to the other, and have a small patio, the town got involved and said, no, you have to do something for the community as well as for the businesses. So now we have an area that if you go any weekend, in fact, if you haven't been here on the weekends during the summer, then you have no idea that Del Mar is different than you think. Because Del Mar is not a town of 4,000, 4,200 people or a couple thousand houses. Del Mar is a jewel for San Diego, all of San Diego. Because if you look at who comes here and uses our beaches and uses the patio and uses the public spaces, it's all of San Diego at some point. So if you think that you're just talking to us, you're really affecting the lifestyle of a lot of people who don't have the wealth of people in Del Mar have, but they get to use what the people in Del Mar have because we share it with all of San Diego and San Diego County. So I say that because I haven't heard anything that talks about the quality of life that goes on in Del Mar and in San Diego that uses Del Mar. I understand numbers. You know, I've worked with accountants, I've worked with programmers, I've worked with builders, I've worked with all of that. But if you don't take the human side into it, you don't know what you're messing with. And if you look at La Jolla, how it's developed. San Diego, Del Mar is now what probably La Jolla was 50 years ago. People would rather be here because of it's just a civilized, nice way to live. You feel like you're on vacation when you come into the town. You're going to take all that away. So what's going to be left for the quality of the life, not just of here, but of people all around? So when you mess with, you're messing with the quality of your life.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, so I want you to think of that. And then also, what are your backup plans? Like we act as if there may not be an earthquake tomorrow or next year. There hasn't been one in a long time here. What's going to happen? And we're acting as if these timelines make sense. But we all know what happens with these timelines. People do sue, everything happens, and all of a sudden a $4 billion project is a 6, and then it's a 10, and then it's a 20. And then so you're trying to save a little money now. I haven't heard anything. What is the fastest, good way to do this that also respects these other considerations?
Thank you, Jerry. We appreciate your comments. Thank you. And our final speaker of the night is Greg.
No, don't worry. Nobody. Thank you. I'll be brief. I mentioned at the first open house that SANDAG's #1 job was to restore credibility because I think SANDAG does not have that credibility. This is a step in the right direction. I appreciate all that you've done to prepare for tonight. I mentioned that the credibility issue because when you read the report, there's a certain spin in various areas. And what I'm basically saying is I think SANDAG has to go back and redo their criteria when they came up with the various alignments. And why do I say that? Because time was rated as a 15% component. And you said to get up to 110 miles an hour. What you don't say is within the project area. The project area is 5.65 miles of a 60-mile corridor. So what I'm hearing, if I have this correct, is that's a big factor to you to get to 110 miles an hour in a 5-mile corridor on a 60-mile rail path. And to me, I'm not so sure that's a good criteria to use. So I think you have to avoid the spin. When you say 8 million passengers, true, and that's maybe the whole corridor. What you don't say in that same PowerPoint, it's 2,300 passengers per day in San Diego. So the spin, I think in order to maintain credibility, you have to present the facts. So I'd ask SANDAG to go back and look at their evaluation criteria and truly and realistically look at that criteria, i.e. speed, i.e. the number of people, et cetera, and present accurate, complete facts. And I think most people in this room would be much better or happier if, in fact, CDM was eliminated. And I think when you go back and reevaluate that, CDM will fall by the wayside. So I ask you to be true to yourselves and be true to the residents of this community. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you again to everyone for all of your comments tonight. As we mentioned, everything was recorded, and so that will be made part of the record, and we will share that with the project team so everyone has your comments. A reminder again, all of our upcoming outreach events, in addition to the information desk that will be here at the Town Hall in Del Mar, please come and see us and join us at the future workshops. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.